Hi, it's John Glynn, and in this session I'm going to be looking at layers with adjustment, fill and adjustment layer to levels. Okay, levels I find extremely useful. I've got a photograph here. The levels is giving me a histogram of the actual image, the brightness range within the image, and the important thing here is really the black point and the white point. So you've got these two little triangles underneath the histogram, and there's also a mid-tone grey point right in the middle. That's the important information that we're going to be looking at today. The output levels, which are underneath, I'll show you what they do. You can drag the right one down to the right, and you can see my picture, or the left one down to the right, sorry, the left one, the black down to the lighter area, and the white can be dragged along to the black. These really don't help, but these are related to the number of tonal ranges that you have within your photograph, especially the shades of grey, if you like, and there's around about 255, as you can see, or 256 if you believe black is a shade of grey. Otherwise it's 255 shades of grey. If you move these, you're basically restricting your shades of grey. So and as you can see, we would be flattening the tonal ranges that you can output from your picture, and you wouldn't generally do that because it will make the picture look flat and pretty awful. So we're not going to change the output levels, okay? They're going to remain the same at each end. So we're not going to look at that. What we will look at is what's going on in this box, and also the three dropper tools. The RGB channel at the top I'm going to actually deal with in a separate tutorial because that's quite complicated. So we would look at this histogram to give us an indication as to where the blacks are. As you can see, although the far left of the histogram is near the left of my graph, if you like, there is a slight gap between the edge of the graph and the black, and that means there is no true black in this picture. There are some very dark areas, but the dark areas are just a very, very dark shade of grey, and therefore they may not look jet black even if you were to print them, and may look a little bit tonally flat. So I would generally up the black. It does improve the overall contrast of a picture. As to how much you up it will depend on the paper you're going to print onto, or your monitor you're viewing it on. But if you're printing onto a canvas paper, you may need effectively more black, because canvas makes black less black just by the way that the light bounces off it. On a shiny piece of paper, you have high contrast anyway, so you may not need to go so far into the shadows. So these sort of things are something you will have to learn by experience. The white on the far right hand side, there is a few little dots there. Basically these white sails aren't truly white, they're probably just a lighter shade of grey. So therefore, if I wanted to make the sails white, I may well have to drag it all the way down to the left. Maybe not quite as far, but not far off. So these are factors again which would come into how you're wanting to represent the sails. If you want any detail in them, you may find that you just need to pull back a bit. You may find if you're printing onto photographic paper, you already have a white base, and therefore you may want a very slight tone to lift off that white base. So again, that would be an issue. So that will depend on where you put the white point, if you like. And obviously if it's a cloud, then it wouldn't matter so much. That cloud's meant to be white and fluffy. But if it was somebody's face, it might be a big issue. So you'd have to be adjusting this related to the whiteness of the area of the picture you're going to make white, if you like, or lighter. And then you've got your midtones. So once you've made a decision on your black, you can see the midtones moves along with me pushing these other options around. I can now move the midtones separately, and that's the black is where it's meant to stay and the white is where that's going to stay, but the tones in between can be changed accordingly. And I tend to go for slightly darker pictures because I think they're more dramatic and more dynamic than light pictures. So it could be as simple as that, and immediately you've done that, you've created a more contrasty and maybe a stronger looking image. Because you've done it in layers, it has created its own layer mask. So basically it's on a separate level. We can turn it on and off. So I can go to my little magic eye and I can see the original picture and now the new picture, and you can see there's quite a marked difference between the two. And certainly I would prefer to go for the new version, if you like, with having done that work on the picture. Very few pictures that you take will be perfect out of the can, if you like, because light is difficult to control. So although it can look okay, and it might be okay depending on the type of paper you print onto, you may find that with a little bit of tweaking in this levels and just changing where the blacks are, where the white points are, you will improve the picture, the look of the picture a great deal. So it's well worth looking at using levels. I'm going to put everything back because the advantage of doing everything in layers is you can undo everything that you've just done. So we can put it all back to what it was originally. And I have these three little eyedroppers on the right hand side here. The top eyedropper gives me a black point, the mid one is a grey point, and the bottom one is a white point. Okay, and most people will look at the top black or bottom white for what they're trying to do. For the black, click on it once with the left mouse key, and what you're doing is basically putting your dropper over an area of the picture you believe should be the darkest point in your picture, and this is quite important to get right. So if I say to the camera or to my picture, the computer, that this area here in the far back should be black, I click it and you can see that quite instantly everything else goes quite dark, and you can actually see the histogram changes dramatically as well. If I go to the white point and I said, right, now then I've got a white point, but I think the sails of the boats ought to be white, I may have to zoom in a bit to help me pick this up because the boats are a long way off and there's nothing in the foreground that should be white, so maybe the white of the sail. And then I can zoom back on that and have a look at it, and it gives me that kind of picture. And I can again turn them on and off and get an idea of whether I like that look. It's a little bit too contrasty for my liking, but it is a starting point, and it might be that that black point wasn't necessarily the right point to have black, may have been better in the foreground or something like that. These are things you just have to try out. Mid-tone grey one, if I undo those options again, I'm going to do reset and go back to square one. I've got my mid-tone grey. This one will change colours as well. So if I put it over the top of a black area and say mid-tone grey, it will not only change the density of the picture, it will also attempt to change the colour of the picture. So I'll reset that, put it over the red of the bridge, and it will put in the opposite colour. Okay, if you have a colour cast and you're trying to make it neutral, then it is possible that this can help you do that. And when you're trying to do a grey, it's not the simplest thing in this particular package, unfortunately, but you can remove colour casts because you put the opposite colour in. So if I put it onto the blue of the boat sail, it will add the opposite colour to blue, which is yellow, yellowy orange. If, as I said before, I put it over red, it will give the opposite colour, which is a blue cyan colour. So with the grey, mid-tone grey point, you have to find a grey in your picture. Okay, otherwise you'll find that it will introduce a colour tone. It will also remove a colour tone if you can find a mid-tone grey. So it can be used for colour correction. So I would have a look at this particular tool, but be a bit more careful with where you choose to put a grey point, because it doesn't just, it changes the mid-tone, it changes the colours as much as anything else, while the black point doesn't. It will just add a black, okay, and the white point will add white. We'll make that the lightest part of the picture. Okay, so just be aware where you're putting these particular eyedroppers. Personally, I prefer to use the units at the bottom because I feel I'm in more control. So I can judge by just visually looking at the picture how much black or how much white I want to add, and also the in the mid-tones myself. And it doesn't change the colour of the picture, but it can enhance the tonal ranges in the picture, and by doing that you do effectively make the colours stronger. Okay, it is worth having a go and looking at these eyedroppers though, and also this particular levels and so on. So have a go with them. It definitely does work. You can also, oh by the way, you can turn off the effect from indicates your layer visibility in the layer itself, but you can also do that while you're working on it by going to the bottom here, toggle, turn it on and off from there as well while you're working. Okay, so a little light at the bottom for letting you do that, and this little option here allows you to just link it to the layer below, but as we've only got one layer and I'm just working above it, I don't need to link it to that specific layer. I can, and usually we're doing this for all layers rather than just one, but you can link it to just one specific layer if you wish, and you can click reset to go back to square one. Okay, so have a look at the levels. It is very, very powerful, and most photographs will require some work within the levels option. Okay, thank you very much for watching.